Hey guys, Josh here from pmstudent.com. I wanted to share with you in this video some of my thoughts around higher education, certifications, and how to go about deciding whether or not these things are for you and where they fit into your project management career. So just going through my email, I responded to one, basically wrote a blog post um, in responding to this email. And essentially the question was around, you know, I'm looking at these two degree programs. These are advanced degrees, so this person already has a bachelor degree, and they're thinking, actually, I think what started it is they're kind of worried about, maybe their job's going to be going away because of the economy or maybe some things that are happening at the company, and so they're getting a little bit worried about it and want to do something to put themselves in a better position, which is, definitely, spot on. So they basically said, I've been looking at an MBA and also a Master's of Science in Engineering Management as two potential options. This person is an engineer right now, and they're asking me from the perspective of getting into project management. Now, there's a couple things that came out, and this is I'm not picking on this person because I get questions like this all the time, and I think in general, this is not just project management, but just as a culture, we don't spend enough time thinking about why we're doing things or what we really want to do. We kind of tend to jump to the how. So, I mean, my recommended process for thinking about your career and planning your career is pretty much the same, or there's similar themes that you'll find within managing a project. So, you need to start with the why, and then move to the what, and then you can get to the how and the when and all of the details about how do you actually go and execute on this. Um, a lot of people that I run into, they start doing project management certification courses, or start going for something like the PMP exam, or they enroll in a master's degree program like an MBA or something like that, um, without really going through a lot of the stuff that I would recommend that you go through. Um, so, you know, basically, because if you're doing that, it feels like, I'm doing something. And a lot of times, even though it's not more work, the actual process of sitting down and getting really clear on what your goals are is really, it's uncomfortable and it's a difficult process to go through. But it's something that I think everyone needs to do. First of all, when it comes to project management, I'm a little bit, this is kind of how I feel about advanced degrees when it comes to project management. Okay, a lot of people are probably going to disagree with me on this. I don't think that education is ever wasted as long as you're doing it for the right reasons and you're not doing it just to get the piece of paper and you're really applying yourself and you're learning stuff. I think education is awesome. Now, I don't have an advanced degree. I've got a bachelor's degree in project management, and I thought about going for a master's degree or an MBA, but I decided against it. So I'm a little bit biased, maybe. This is my bias coming into it. So other people who have an MBA, they're going to have their own biases as well. Because if you went and spent a lot of money on an advanced degree, it's going to be difficult for you to be honest with yourself if you didn't really get as much out of it. Now, there have been some people on my blog who have commented who did get advanced degrees, and they do say, I don't really know that it was worth all the money and time and effort that I put into it. But again, I'm not down on master's degrees or MBAs as a general thing. More along the lines of for project management and managers in particular, I don't know how much it does for you. You're definitely gonna get benefit from it, but you got to weigh that against the time and the cost. I mean, a lot of these MBA programs, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 or more. And so you really have to weigh that and say, is this really going to result in a direct increase in my salary? And are there other things that I could be doing instead of spending time in class that would also be advantageous for my career. So for this person specifically, and kind of in general, if you're coming from an engineering background or a technical background and you have a bachelor's degree already, I would rather see you go land a management job, even if it's not project management, but it needs to be somewhat related to the type of role, the industry that you want to be in, that you want to be managing projects in. I'd rather see you go out and land a job, getting experience in the trenches, managing people, managing teams. You can dovetail that with your technical background if you have a technical background, and go that route. Because 2 or 3 years down the line, when you've been managing these teams and projects for 2 to 3 years, I think you're going to get a lot more return on investment from that than you will from an MBA program. In most cases, this is a general statement, so I can't make any recommendations specific to you, the person who's watching this video, because I don't know anything about your background. But in general, that's how I feel about it. So I'd rather see people go get experience than spend a lot of time and money and energy on an MBA program or other program like that, especially for management type disciplines. Now, if you're going to be going into something that's a little bit more specialized, like you want to be a researcher in the field of management, or especially for the sciences or advanced engineering degrees, things like that. That's really where the master's programs and the PhDs, I think, really come into their own, is when you've got some kind of a specialty. So I know a lot of project managers who are consultants and researchers who have PhDs, and that's exactly why you should go get a master's and a PhD. And I think that if your goal is to be managing projects and to get good at managing projects, the best way to learn is you want to have some kind of a foundation to start from. That bachelor degree that you've got, or even the basis of experience that you have, is probably going to be sufficient as a basis to start from. And then from there, the best thing you can do is go out and get experience. Now, if you did, the person that I responded to, if you did this and 2 or 3 years down the road, now you've got a few years of experience under your belt, managing teams, managing projects, and at that point it still seems like a good idea, it still seems like something that you want to pursue, then go for it. I'm like I said, I love education. I'm not against anybody going out and getting educated, but I just see too many people jump into, oh, I've got to get the PMP exam, oh, I've got to get an MBA, just because it seems like not the hip thing to do, but it seems like, hey, this is a really good thing, it sounds like a really good thing that I should be doing to better myself, to put myself at a competitive advantage in the marketplace, and that's not necessarily the case. Essentially, I mean, I went and got a degree in project management, and I had not finished a degree. I went to school originally for electrical engineering, and didn't finish because basically it wasn't for me. But then I started managing teams and managing projects, and I ended up going back to school to get a degree in project management. Now, for me, that's a little bit different because I didn't have a bachelor degree at all. So for a lot of the positions that project managers would go for, the default bar that you have to pass is a bachelor degree. So that's something that I had to do regardless of what it did. Now, as far as having a specialty in project management, I have to explain to potential employers what it is most of the time. So me having a degree in project management from a marketing standpoint doesn't really do me much good, because most companies just they've never even heard of a degree in project management. So I can say that it was really good for me because I really applied myself to the education and got a lot out of it because of that. Probably more than 50% of the value that I got from going back to school and doing a degree in project management was the self-study that I did. I created my blog right about the time that I went back to school, and I did a lot of independent research on things that I would discover through my classes. And I was also a working project manager at the time as well, which was great because I could learn stuff in class and then go and apply it or figure out how to apply it on my projects. I guess what I would recommend to anyone who is looking to, better themselves and thinking about, is project management a career path that I would like to go down? First of all, just take some time. Think about it this way: if you went and dedicated yourself to an MBA program, and you went for a year and a half or 2 years and spent, $30, $40, $50,000 on this program, and all the time that you're going to be spending in class and doing homework and things like that, compare that against just a couple hours to sit down and get really crystal clear on what your goals are. Where do you want to be 10 years from now? And I'm not just talking about, oh, I want to have a good job. I want to know specifically, write this down, whether you do it, I do have a career coaching course that I created specifically to answer these types of questions because there's a lot of different things to go through. And I have some worksheets in there that you could use. But you don't need those necessarily. You could just write this down. So your 10-year goal, I want to know, what is your title? What's your salary? What type of people do you work with? What's an average day like for you? What does your office look like? Where do you live? Those types of things. So project yourself into the future. And this is a way to really say, what is your dream job? A lot of people say, oh, that would be my dream job. Or I wish I could get my dream job. What is your dream job? Have you ever really explicitly written it down? Probably not. Most people haven't. So go ahead and do that. Just take a few hours and think about it. Just write a couple paragraphs down about exactly what it is where you want to be. And then from there, so that's a 10-year goal. I don't recommend you go beyond that just because it's way too far out there. I mean, 10 years is kind of stretching it already. But starting with your 10-year goal, now do the same thing for a 5-year goal and a 3-year goal and a 2-year goal and a 1-year goal. Where do you want to be at these milestones? What does it look like there? Be explicit. Write it down. Write a couple paragraphs about what your work is like, who you work with, what your life is like at that point in time. And then after you've gotten clear, now you're clear on why you're doing this and what it is that you want to do. Now you can go and figure out how. How am I going to get to that point? You can look at that 1-year goal and say, this 1-year goal right here, how am I going to achieve that? And you can start thinking of activities that you can be doing to make that happen. And then you can go execute on that. If you go through that process and you feel like an MBA is a part of that process, then great, go for it. Just do it in a very purposeful manner. Don't just go for it so that you feel like you're doing something. Do it because it's the best thing for you. And make sure that when you're weighing these decisions about how to approach it, because going after a degree is a how, it's not a what. One of the ways that you might get to your 5-year goal for being in this role, go do some research on that role and you find out that really an MBA is kind of a requirement for that type of role that you want to go after. Well, then the MBA is going to be a part of your how. It's going to be part of your plan. If the PMP certification fits in there somewhere, great. Make sure that you have enough experience to go for it. It does require 3 to 5 years of experience actually managing projects in order to go for the PMP certification. It doesn't get sold that way a lot of times by the training companies who are putting out training for it. And so even though it's your responsibility to know that, sometimes people get sold on that and they go to these PMP certification boot camps or they buy a training package or whatever without really understanding the fact that you need to have this required experience in order to go for it. This is going to sound like a plug because it is. If you're in this type of position and you're kind of wondering what to do with your career, and you're wondering things like, what should I be doing and how do I actually go out and do those? I did put a course together, an online course. It's called Project Management Career Coaching. And the first couple parts of it are specifically about, their worksheets and videos of me talking through these things. But for you to get really clear on what your current starting point is, where do you want to go, what are your career goals, formulating a plan for how to get to those. In that course, I talk about networking and professional organizations that you might want to join and go get with. And also in terms of landing a job, doing things like researching organizations as opposed to going after specific job titles. I talk about that quite a bit. Most jobs that get filled because someone knows someone. It's who you know. It's true, and there's nothing wrong with that actually, because if you're a hiring manager, you're going to take the word of someone who you know and trust, who is recommending someone to you, much more than you can by just looking at a piece of paper, a resume, and trying to make a decision based on that. Or even the interview process, it's difficult as a hiring manager to make that decision. I've got these 20 candidates that I've interviewed, which one's the best one? You've got the list of questions. It's really difficult. Everybody's putting on their best face in those interviews, so it's really difficult if you don't know anything about anyone in order to make a good decision. So, most jobs get filled by people who know someone and there's a referral going on, there's a recommendation going on. So in that course, I talk about how important networking is and how really what you want is to have specific organizations that you want to go work for particular reasons, because they value project management as a discipline, or it's the type of organization that you want to come in and bring the discipline of project management to them. Whatever it is, research the organizations, find out what your preferred environment is to work in, and then you can start looking at specific jobs. But even more so, you want to start looking at who works at those companies. Who do you know that knows someone at those companies? How can you network with people in order to make yourself known to the hiring managers at that company, basically? And those are the types of things that are really going to help you in terms of landing the individual positions that are going to progress you through that series of goals that you've laid out in your. You can start out by doing these long-range planning, but you are going to have to adapt. Your goals a year from now are not going to be the same as your goals that you have right now. So I do recommend that you go through this process once a year. And you can do a refresh on this, in less than 2 to 4 hours a year. That's a pretty minute investment to be really clear on what it is that you're doing and be purposeful about your project management career and your career in general. So, one of the things in the course that I put together, one of the first things is to figure out what your current experience and starting point is, and then figure out what your goals are. And through that process, you may find out that you don't want to be a project manager. This is not really the right career choice for you, and that's fine. Whatever the right career choice for you is, you need to go through that process just to make sure that you know what that is, and then you can go pursue it. Maybe some people look at IT project management positions because, I read in a magazine article that this is one of the up and coming careers, and so I think this would be a good field for me to get into, without really understanding too much about what a day in the life of an IT project manager is, and is it a job that you would really enjoy or not. If you're going for just the salary, there's a lot of other ways to earn good salary that are probably more in line with what would fulfill you as a person in your career. So, um, I'm all about training project managers, but only if you want to be a project manager. There's a lot of people who are in project management right now who shouldn't be because this isn't something that they're passionate about. If you don't like managing people, managing teams, managing conflict, working with a diverse group of stakeholders at different levels. You got the management over here and you got the technical people over here, and you're kind of in the middle. Um, those types of things are what, energize people like me. And training is another thing too, actually, just as a part of the way that I do project management, there's a lot of teaching and training that goes in with that. I like mentoring people on my project teams as well. So there's an aspect of line management that actually in my current environment, these things are separated, but I can't let go of it because, I still love doing that personal development time with my team members. So if that's the kind of stuff that energizes you and you love it, then great. You're going to be a good project manager because you're going to be passionate about it. But if that's not the kind of stuff that energizes you, there's probably a different type of role. And maybe it's in project management. Maybe your type of role, maybe you're a business analyst. Maybe you're a project coordinator, a project scheduler. Maybe you're more of a financial type of guru, and you want to be a project, cost controller or controller, things like that. So keep all of this in mind. This has been pretty long-winded, but I hope it's been helpful. That's kind of my thoughts in general on project management, career planning, and how certifications and education and experience kind of fall into that. So thanks, guys.